The Zyph situation is probably one of the more disgusting ones to have come from the Minecraft community in recent times, as it displays instances of recklessness, dishonesty, inappropriate behavior, and a lack of responsibility. To start from the beginning, a Twitter account propped up exclusively to release allegations against Zyph, making claims of grooming, sexual assault, and goes over a bit of evidence that showed how Zyph and this victim actually had interactions in real life multiple times, making this an issue that wasn't exclusively tied to internet interactions, which makes this significantly worse, as typically a lot of these allegations are usually limited to inappropriate conversations that occur online. In this initial tweet, we got this statement from the victim. I'll summarize for the sake of preserving time. The statement essentially says that this individual was a troubled child as a 13-year-old, did artwork and paid work for Zyph, and through that eventually grew close to him. Initially, this individual lied about their age, claiming they were 16. The victim got into a relationship with Zyph, but a month into their relationship, she claims she revealed her true age. She says, I pleaded for him to not break up with me, but begging was not needed as he had no intentions of breaking up with me. They eventually broke up in June of 2019, but not before meeting on 4 other occasions in which she claimed to have been SA'd. Now, to be clear, don't draw any conclusions just yet. Not until the end, where we'll summarize and cover Zyph's response to these allegations, and then further evidence that was released following that response. Zyph's response wasn't very strong, as it was mostly he said, she said, with no screenshots and no evidence provided for his various claims. A whole 8 pages of fluff that is mainly just his telling of events. Instead of reading all of it, we'll just pick out some of his main claims and supporting context. In the first 2 pages of the document, Zyph confirms that this victim was in fact an artist that did work for his channel beginning July 2017. Zyph also confirms that in the following year, in May of 2018, this victim had confessed her feelings to him, leading to a relationship in which she thought this individual was 17, himself being 19 at the time. Zyph also confirms to have met her in California in June of 2018, where he met her relatives, and had this to say. On this trip, it was the victim, her mom, her dad, her older sister, her cousin, and himself. The victim was taller than her older sister and looked within 2 to 3 years of her sister and cousin. In this particular paragraph, Zyph is trying to corroborate the claim that he had no idea she was significantly younger due to external factors like no one in her family correcting her age, or her parents making callbacks to trips when she would have been a younger teen, quote unquote. In my opinion, this is not a very believable claim to make. Regardless, this is pointless to hark on for reasons we'll get into later. Zyph continues to add to the claim that he didn't know her age due to the lie never being revealed until later, by saying that her family reinforced the victim's story and he was never invited to any event such as a birthday. To this he says, which I later would find out is because she had lied about her age the entire time. I have to say that this is a pointless detail to add, which in my opinion is an attempt to lessen or downplay the severity of what he did, considering that at some point he actually found out the minor's age and continued the relationship. You'll see what I mean the more we look into his response. Zyph adds additional details for this route he's taking of I didn't know for a while, and starts telling stories about how he visited her grandparents and relatives at Thanksgiving, where no one acknowledged her true age, and started discussing plans of college, schoolwork, transferring schools, etc. There's also this about her parents and how they would like interactions between himself and this girl, as it lessened arguments between themselves, and she appeared to be a happier person. But here's where it starts getting strange, and where we start going down the details of her going into the reveal of her age. There's a section where Zyph claims the girl would often disappear and she would come up with excuses like hardware issues or vacations, but in actuality, it was because of arguments between her parents regarding the lies she told about her age and hospitalizations involving self-harm and emotional instability. Apparently, she was potentially suicidal as well. This is an important part of this entire situation, not just this response, and that will become more apparent down the line, by the way. On page 5 specifically, Zyph starts discussing details about another visit to her and her family in Connecticut, this being on March 2019. At this point, this would have been a year into the relationship. Continuing this, however, Zyph starts explaining how during this visit, she would attempt to ask him for sex, in which he would turn her down multiple times. His reasoning being his Christian background, not wanting to engage in sex before marriage. I hate to speculate, and don't take what I'm about to say too seriously, but this just sounds like a convenient excuse. In that same paragraph, he claims that he spoke to her parents about this as well due to it making him uncomfortable, and states that being accused of this after his stance being to deny her engagement is unfair and hurtful. Here we have Zyph's apparent recollection on how he found out her age. On April of 2019, Zyph got a call from her crying, with her parents telling her to tell the truth and end the story, and was told that she was turning 14 that month, not 18. According to Zyph, she had been lying to not just him about her age, but all of her friends before he ever met her. There's a part of this section here which doesn't really sit right with me. Zyph says, I was in shock that our entire relationship had been built on a lie that had been supported and fabricated by her entire family for years to keep her emotionally stable and alive. This, to me, just feels like an incredibly weird way to convey the fact that you've been lied to. While I dislike speculating, you can usually pick up on someone's goals or intentions based on how they frame things. And this, to me, makes it appear as if you're trying to gather sympathy for your irresponsibility. Not to mention that as we continue down the document, we can see that Zyph did in fact continue the relationship, so the rest of these previous details are completely moot now. Zyph may attempt to utilize caveats such as, this was my first relationship, or I didn't know what would happen if I broke up with her as she was mentally unwell, or I stayed with her because I didn't want her to harm herself. And while I can understand a level of emotional manipulation here, at the end of the day, you are an adult and that is a minor. The responsibility to end that relationship falls on you, and the responsibility of her behavior falls on her parents. Keep in mind, per his own words, the relationship apparently continued up until September of 2019, which is already several months after being told the truth. Again, incredibly irresponsible, and it's not something you should have continued to engage in following that instance. Now, after this response was released, I did not believe it would have just ended there at just a he said, she said story. We got another document that provides more corroborating evidence and clarity to this entire story. So, for starters, there's actually evidence to the fact that this girl lied about her age, but here's the kicker. The images directly show her claiming she's 15 as late as March of 2018, which is directly contradictory to the age Zyph gives in his response of 16 as early as April of 2017. This is actually an incredibly dishonest presentation of events directly from Zyph. Keep in mind, those screenshots show that there were messages of her age present in Zyph's server multiple times. Additionally, we also have evidence of her birthday provided via her license, which shows her birth date is April 2005. We also have some screenshots here of an interaction between this girl and another individual that corroborates the claim that Zyph began dating her in May of 2018. At this point, this girl would have been 16 per the lie, but 13 in reality. But per Zyph's story, 17. Very strange, really. It would imply that Zyph believed it was a 2-year age difference when that simply was not the reality of events in this case. I know we just looped, but again, very, very dishonest from Zyph in this case, which already shows Zyph is obfuscating the narrative to give himself more charitability. This alone shows a level of deceptiveness from Zyph, making his story an incredibly weak defense of himself, filled with an irrational excuse as to why he kept dating this girl. There is also evidence that supports the fact these individuals have met in person multiple times, just to add, even though we already know this, in fact, did occur per both of their stories. But more importantly, and this is where charitability goes out the window for Zyph, the victim did in fact admit a month later that she had been lying about her age, which directly lines up with the victim's claims in her story. How did Zyph react to this though? Zyph directly acknowledges this and states that he will wait for her, and when asked if they broke up, he just says, nope. So, to be very clear, throughout Zyph's entire response, he directly lied about when he found out this individual was a minor. He claims he broke up with her in September of 2019 after finding out in April of 2019 that she had lied. Evidently, that wasn't the case. He broke up with her after dating her for over a year per his claims of getting with her in May of 2018. There's also something interesting here now that we're on the subject of timeline. Apparently, Zyph met her for the first time in June of 2018 at VidCon in California, which happened towards the end of June, which would be just a week before Zyph acknowledging the victim's age in these messages. Additionally, per Zyph's story, he went to go meet her again in August 2018, November 2018, March of 2019, and even had her at his apartment in July of 2019, which at this point is nonsensical and just further goes to show that Zyph had no concern of whether this was an issue or not, which is disgusting. There's also screenshots of others acknowledging the strange age gap, which further corroborates the fact that Zyph had knowingly been dating and visiting this minor for the next 5 months, even being concerned with a potential lie. Not just that, but screenshots of others commenting on the fact that this victim still did in fact look like a 12-year-old to them, which is strange to think about considering Zyph commented on the variance in age she appeared as in comparison to her cousins and older sister. It's already very established that Zyph was in fact a disgusting individual by this point. It can't get any more case closing in this. We see that Zyph has lied. We see that Zyph knew of her age. We know that Zyph kept visiting this minor. We know that people had issues with their relationships and that others knew her age and also were not unaware of how wrong this was. But what about the sexual assault allegation? There's actually instances here of people coming forward with information they heard from a specific cousin of the victim in question, claiming that Zyph had engaged in oral sex with the victim. All we have for this claim is just these two interactions, but this one here in particular stands out to me. According to this exchange, this cousin in specific wanted to get Zyph arrested as he was allegedly manipulating the victim behind the scenes as well. Apparently, the parents knew of this relationship and approved, but did not know just how bad it's gotten. If it is true that the parents knew, it also further disqualifies Zyph's story as credible, as none of his claims that the parents supported the victim's lie would be true. This, in my opinion, makes it feel as if Zyph is more culpable in all of this than he leads on, and is a malicious actor to a higher extent due to how much of a liar he is and how he tries to paint this deceptive narrative. To add to this claim, there is evidence to suggest that Zyph was attempting to conceal anything regarding the inappropriate relationship between himself and this victim, and banned anyone who brought up their age or any concerns regarding them. It's very disgusting and shows that there was a significant attempt to conceal something he knew was wrong. But just to come back to the essay and manipulation allegations, it's very hard to make an absolute claim that this occurred. There is obviously not a lot of evidence to this. However, I'd argue that Zyph was a manipulative individual, given the extents he went to hide people's concerns, and even create this incredibly deceptive narrative in his response, which was 8 pages long. 8 pages of absolute BS. I should also say that an age gap that large is inherently very manipulative, considering the fact that this victim was obviously incredibly parasocial and impressionable, seeing how this person made tons of art for Zyph before and after getting into contact with him. It didn't just stop there, though, in terms of parasociality, because apparently this victim went as far as to even create not safe for work art of Zyph, which was corroborated by Zyph himself in his response. It's very clear to me that this girl was incredibly mentally ill at the time, super parasocial and impressionable, obsessed with this YouTuber, which are modifiers that could be used to Zyph's advantage for whatever reason, as if being a minor wasn't already bad enough. Point being that Zyph did in fact engage in an incredibly disgusting and inappropriate relationship with someone he knew was a minor for over a year based on the evidence provided. He did not cut contact with this minor after being informed of her real age, and he did not cut contact after breaking up with her, which further shows just how little he cares for his malicious behavior. In my assessment, I definitely have to say that Zyph, or Zyph, however you say his name, is a morally bankrupt individual. He's disgusting and attempted to hide something horrible that could have been made significantly more public as soon as 5 years ago. Because of this, I have to say that this is an individual that could be a potential risk in the future, considering his behavior in sweeping stuff like this, constructing an outright deceptive narrative as well, and having a platform that could potentially attract more victims. This probably has to be the more disgusting individual to be exposed this year amidst the sea of drama that occurred. That being said, that's all I got for today. Thanks for watching.